Right now, comfort is winning. Most people give in to whatever feels easiest in the moment, and they've forgotten what it feels like to actually be in charge of themselves. In a world like that, choosing discipline isn't just a good habit. It's a quiet act of rebellion. I will teach you 12 rules, taken from the private thoughts of men who ruled empires, survived slavery, and faced hard lives without falling apart. But before the list starts, know this: the 12th rule ties everything else together. It's the one that turns a disciplined person into someone who truly cannot be shaken. Keep that in mind. Everything is building toward it. Before going further, type the words "will over weakness" somewhere you'll see them. That's a small way to prove that attention can be controlled instead of scattered. One Roman emperor once wrote, just for himself, that nothing outside his own mind had power over him unless he gave it that power. That one idea is the seed everything else grows from. Strength was never handed to anyone by luck. It was built, piece by piece, through private effort nobody else saw. Real discipline has nothing to do with being perfect. It's not about never messing up. It's about coming back. Again and again. Long after the motivation is gone and nobody is watching, a disciplined person just keeps returning to the work. The old Stoics believed the world runs on order and reason, and living with self-control is simply your own small piece of that order, carved out in a world that keeps pulling you toward chaos. None of this came from someone who never struggled. It came from a ruler dealing with war, disease, and betrayal, writing notes to himself by candlelight, not for anyone else, just because he needed to hold himself accountable. That's really what self-discipline is. It's the quiet conversation between the better part of you and the weaker part of you, settled in private, night after night, promise by promise. What follows are 12 simple tools, not big theories, drawn from the real lives of a Roman emperor, a philosopher who was once a slave, and a writer who spent his life thinking about how short life really is. None of these rules ask you to run away from the world. They ask you to stand stronger inside it. None of them promise an easy life. They promise control. Ask yourself honestly, if keeping your promises to yourself actually mattered as much as life or death, would you still put things off? Would you still make excuses? The Stoics tried to live as if each day might be their last, not to panic, but to cut out everything unnecessary. Clarity leads to action, and action repeated every day becomes discipline. There's no trick to it. Just repeat it, pay attention, and let it slowly turn into habit. One writer put it simply: while people keep waiting, life keeps moving without them. Discipline is just refusing to keep waiting. Now the countdown begins, starting at Rule 12, ending at Rule 1, building toward the idea that holds everything else together. *** Rule 12, don't fully trust pleasure or pain. ***. Neither one deserves blind obedience. Just because something feels good doesn't mean it's smart. Just because something hurts doesn't mean it's bad. A disciplined person questions both the same way: does this make me stronger, or is it quietly making me weaker? One emperor, constantly tempted by the comforts of power, kept coming back to one idea: if you refuse to feel hurt, you stop being hurt. But that kind of control can't exist alongside a soft attachment to comfort or a fear of discomfort. What this actually means is learning to enjoy good things without needing them, and to handle hard things without resenting them, treating both as simple facts, not as verdicts on how life should go. This isn't about shutting off your feelings. It's about not being controlled by things outside your control, and pleasure and pain, no matter how personal they feel, are exactly that. They come, they go, they can't be the foundation you build your life on. Comfort tempts you by whispering that you've already done enough, that you've earned a break, that pushing further isn't necessary. It creates a sense of entitlement, and entitlement kills discipline. That's why one emperor called it bait, not all pleasure, but the kind that sneaks in and quietly steals your edge without you noticing. Pain, on the other hand, scares you. It tells you something's wrong and that you should run from it. But hard moments show you exactly who you really are. Pain handled with purpose makes you sharper, not weaker. Building this kind of balance starts with an honest look at yourself. What comforts control your mood, your focus, your choices? Your phone? Food? Other people's approval? Once you know, start adding small amounts of friction on purpose, not to punish yourself, but to test yourself. Delay the reward. Say no when it's easier to say yes. Skip a meal. Put the phone away. Walk instead of ride. At first it feels like you're denying yourself something. Then something shifts, you realize your urges aren't who you are. You can delay them, redirect them, and grow past them. The same goes for pain. Start small, a little physical discomfort, a small disappointment, everyday stress. Instead of running from it or making it a bigger deal than it is, sit with it and ask what you can still control right now. One emperor who lived through illness, betrayal, and war left behind this idea: whatever blocks your path can become the path forward. That's not just a nice quote. It's a way of operating. Meet obstacles with resolve, not self-pity. This kind of balance isn't coldness. It's staying loyal to the one thing that's actually yours, your own choices. Every pleasure and every pain is really just a test asking one question: are you still in control, or has something else taken over? The modern world makes this hard on purpose. Apps are built to exploit your weaknesses. Advertising sells you comfort. Culture worships ease. Which is exactly why staying strong in a soft world is its own kind of rebellion. Character, not comfort, becomes the real goal, and character is built the moment you decide that cravings won't control you and pain won't break you. *** Rule 11, choose hard things on purpose, before life forces them on you. ***. Growth happens under pressure, not under comfort, something the modern mind resists by instinct. People mistake an easy life for a successful one, but the old Stoics believed strong character comes from difficulty you choose, not suffering forced on you or self-punishment for its own sake. It's training. It's preparation for the hard times life will bring, whether you're ready or not. The idea is simple. Choose the harder option today so that tomorrow's forced hardship finds you already prepared for it. One emperor woke up before sunrise in army camps, surrounded by political stress, just to write his private thoughts by candlelight. Every sentence he wrote under those conditions was itself a small choice to be uncomfortable: cold mornings, long marches, heavy decisions, all training his mind to stay steady no matter what. Modern comfort has quietly removed this kind of training from daily life. Walks become car rides. Cold water becomes warm water. Physical effort gets handed off to machines. Getting your willpower back means bringing small amounts of friction back on purpose: cold showers, occasional fasting, small acts of self-denial, choosing the harder path on foot instead of the easy way. These are just practice runs, nothing more, getting your body and mind ready for hardships you can't plan for or avoid. Think about the philosopher who spent decades as a slave, facing daily humiliation and limits on his freedom, who still trained himself to hold back in food, speech, and reaction until his inner will stayed untouched no matter what happened around him. That's the real advantage voluntary hardship gives you. When actual suffering shows up, you don't panic, because you've already practiced staying calm. This rule also breaks down entitlement. Nobody is owed an easy life. Choosing difficulty on purpose confronts that assumption head-on, replacing dependence on luck with dependence on discipline. Start small, skip a meal on purpose, take the longer route, sit quietly without your phone, be honest with yourself about your flaws. Each of these trains your mind to handle effort instead of automatically avoiding it. Choosing hardship also sharpens your judgment. Doing something hard on purpose builds patience, courage, and endurance, and trains you to act on principle instead of impulse. Comfort clouds your thinking. Stepping away from it, even briefly, brings back clarity about what actually matters and what's just noise. One emperor who faced small daily annoyances without complaining understood that handling small discomfort calmly builds the exact strength needed for bigger problems. Every time he skipped the easy option, he built the ability to act with integrity when real hardship eventually came, and it always does. When real suffering hits, illness, betrayal, loss, a trained mind understands the suffering itself isn't the real enemy. The real enemy is panicking, complaining, or giving up your principles because of it. Voluntary hardship builds the inner strength that stops that collapse from happening. *** Rule 10. Question your cravings before you obey them. ***. Controlling yourself starts with controlling what you want. Every craving promises satisfaction but usually delivers distraction and weakness instead. One emperor kept warning himself not to let his body's urges control his actions, insisting that the mind has to stay in charge over passing cravings. Left unchecked, wanting things enslaves you. Examined and controlled by reason, it sets you free. Controlling your desires doesn't mean violently denying every appetite or refusing basic human needs. It means paying close attention, telling the difference between needs, food, rest, health, and extras, excess, indulgence, chasing something new just because it's new, and putting reason in charge of the extras. Modern life amplifies craving constantly, through ads, social media, and culture, all insisting that happiness lives inside buying and consuming more. Every craving you don't question chips away at your self-control, no matter how successful you look on the outside. Real freedom is measured by how well you control what you want, not by how much you actually have. One emperor, tempted constantly by comfort, approval, and ease while running an entire empire, trained himself to ask a single question instead of following his impulses: does this make my character stronger, or does it weaken it? Let that question guide the decision, not the pull of the moment. A philosopher who was once a slave offered a simple framework: separate what's actually in your control, your thoughts, choices, judgments, from what isn't: wealth, praise, comfort. Depending on the second group ties your happiness to luck. Focusing on the first group, restraint and discipline, builds real strength instead. This takes daily attention. Notice each craving as it shows up. Ask where it's coming from, how strong it is, and what it's really for. If it doesn't serve something bigger, redirect your attention on purpose. Swap impulsive reaction for a calmer response. Do this enough times and it becomes automatic instead of effortful. Waiting instead of grabbing, holding back instead of giving in, none of this is about depriving yourself. It's about building strength. Every time you say no to an impulse, you get a little more independent. A mind that isn't constantly distracted by craving has more room to focus on what actually matters: character, reason, duty. Chasing status or appearances eats up huge amounts of energy for almost nothing in return. Taking that energy back for something worthwhile isn't restriction. It's smart use of your time and attention. Try this: skip one small pleasure today on purpose. Not because you have to, but to prove to yourself that you're still in control. Ask yourself daily which cravings control your thinking, and whether they actually line up with anything worth caring about. Just asking the question starts loosening their grip. Our instincts tend to exaggerate how much we need something and how much satisfaction it will actually bring. Questioning that instinct is how you take back control of your own life. *** Rule 9. Separate what you can control from what you can't, then live entirely inside the first group. Almost nothing matters more than knowing the difference between what belongs to you and what merely surrounds you. A mind fixated on things outside its control gets anxious and restless. A mind that focuses only on its own choices and actions gets calm and steady. This is really where self-control begins, running your own inner world instead of trying to run everything around you. Human instinct fights this constantly. We try to control other people, force outcomes to go our way, resist results we don't like, and measure our worth against luck we can't predict. That instinct is a direct path to unhappiness. Wanting things you can't control breeds frustration. Getting attached to uncertain outcomes breeds despair. A disciplined mind understands that real control only ever exists on the inside. One emperor kept reminding himself that anger, disappointment, and grief come from how we judge events, not from the events themselves. Someone insulting you is external. How you react to it is internal, and completely up to you. A situation stays neutral until your interpretation gives it meaning. This is really where self-discipline begins, not stopping bad things from happening, but choosing how you respond to them. This kind of focus also saves your limited resources, time, energy, attention. Chasing things you can't reach wastes all three for nothing. Putting that same energy into your actions, your thinking, and your character is where your real influence lies. A philosopher who was once a slave taught that the first step toward self-control is separating externals, money, reputation, status, health, from internals, character, judgment, will, choice. Externals have no value on their own. Their weight comes entirely from how much importance we give them. Internals are the only real source of good. A simple daily habit, each morning, name what you can actually influence today, and only act there. If someone offends you, respond calmly instead of emotionally. If you're given a task, do it well. If things don't go the way you wanted, accept it without complaining. This also protects you from being manipulated. Once you understand that only your own choices truly belong to you, nobody else's opinion has the power to disturb your peace. Freed from useless worry, your mind gets sharper, your decisions get faster and more accurate, and your energy stops leaking into things that were never yours to control anyway. Try this daily. Write down 3 things you can influence today: your actions, your words, your attitude, and commit to them fully. Throughout the day, whenever irritation or jealousy comes up, ask yourself if it's actually something you can control. If not, let it go. If it is, act on it. This approach also builds real courage. A mind that isn't shaken by other people's behavior can act ethically even under pressure, sticking to its principles instead of trading them away for convenience. *** Rule 8. Review your day honestly before it ends. Self-control isn't only built through action. It's sharpened through honest review. A mind left unchecked drifts, forgets, and slides toward distraction. One emperor spent huge amounts of his private writing examining his own motives, weighing his reactions, and correcting whatever had drifted off course. Done consistently, this becomes a powerful way to grow, turning experience into wisdom and habit into real discipline. This kind of reflection isn't lazy daydreaming about your day. It's focused, honest questioning. Each evening ask, did my choices today match what I believe in? Did I act with reason, or did impulse take over? Did I handle hard moments with calm, or with weakness? Honest answers build a kind of inner strength nothing outside you can shake. A lot of what trips people up doesn't come from the world itself but from misreading it. Reflection catches those mistakes before they turn into habits. If you reacted impulsively, looking back shows you the flawed thinking behind it. If emotion took over, looking back shows you the trigger and the pattern. Mapping out your own mind this way replaces reacting on autopilot with acting on purpose. A philosopher who was once a slave also taught that you should prepare for the day ahead of time, not just review the past, thinking through possible problems and rehearsing a calm, reasonable response before they even happen. Real reflection looks both backward and forward, learning from what already happened, getting ready for what hasn't happened yet. This process also builds humility. Reviewing your mistakes honestly, without beating yourself up or making excuses, keeps you from becoming arrogant and keeps you growing. Set aside a fixed time each day, a morning or night, to think honestly or write in a journal. Ask simply, did today's actions match my values? Did reason or emotion drive my choices? Where did I fall short, and how do I fix it tomorrow? Patterns show up the more you do this: repeated impulses, habitual reactions, predictable emotional triggers. Noticing these patterns is the raw material discipline is built from. You can't fix what you refuse to see. Every insight becomes a tool for reshaping your behavior on purpose instead of by accident. Facing uncomfortable truths about yourself without flinching also builds real courage. There's no hiding from responsibility once you're being honest with yourself. Owning your intentions and actions fully builds integrity. One emperor treated this habit as a way of taking charge of himself, reviewing his own thoughts and realigning them with his values even while wars were happening and betrayal was possible at any moment. His mind stayed disciplined because he had already trained it to be. Reflection builds on itself over time. Each session adds to the last, turning short bursts of effort into a lasting habit, and ordinary daily life into practice for living well. *** Rule 7, let obstacles become the material you're built from. ***. Real strength isn't made in comfort. It's forged under pressure. Life, by nature, doesn't cooperate with what you want. It's unpredictable, often difficult, and rarely convenient. Staying steady under that pressure is what real strength looks like, and it's what turns hardship into growth instead of defeat. One emperor put it simply: whatever blocks your way can become the way forward. Obstacles aren't interruptions to a disciplined life, they're literally what it's built from. Resisting or resenting difficulty gets you nowhere. Meeting it head-on, with reason and purpose, is real strength. Building strength this way means completely changing how you see hardship. Most people treat difficulty as a personal attack or a reason to give up. A disciplined mind understands the world just works the way it works, not the way we'd prefer. Illness, loss, betrayal, and failure aren't good or bad by themselves. They are neutral tests of your character and material for building better judgment and stronger character. A philosopher who was once a slave taught that you can't always control what happens, but you can always control how you respond. That single difference is what separates a mind that's trapped, reactive, anxious, controlled by outside events, from one that's free, anchored instead in reason and personal choice. Building strength in practice starts small, voluntarily choosing cold, hunger, physical effort, or honest emotional reflection. Each of these is a practice run for the hardship you didn't plan for. Getting good at handling small difficulties builds the confidence you need to face bigger ones without falling apart. Building strength this way also means accepting that nothing lasts. Luck shifts constantly, bad times pass, good times pass, health rises and falls. Anchoring your identity in what's actually permanent, reason, character, values, protects your mind from those constant ups and downs. Outside events can't shrink that core. Only giving up on your own values can. Difficulty, seen the right way, becomes a teacher. Every hard moment shows you both your weak points and strengths you didn't know you had. Honestly reflecting on each difficulty, how you handled it, how you could handle it better, turns hardship into training, and training into lasting habit. This mindset favors action over complaining. Complaining, blaming others, or fighting the unavoidable just wastes energy without solving anything. Focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, judgment, and response, turns a challenge directly into an opportunity. It also means accepting uncertainty instead of fighting it. Illness, loss, and accidents can happen without warning. Expecting that in advance, instead of pretending it won't happen, builds the mental flexibility to absorb the shock without falling apart. Rule 6. Practice saying no to small things so it becomes automatic in big ones. Self-restraint is discipline you can actually see. It's the ability to control your impulses and act from reason instead of instinct, and the old Stoics believed that character isn't built through big dramatic moments but through the steady build-up of small, deliberate choices made in ordinary situations. Modern culture mostly makes fun of restraint, celebrating indulgence and instant gratification instead, moving people straight from wanting something to having it without a single pause. That pattern breeds inconsistency and makes you an easy target for your own emotions. Discipline, on the other hand, is the conscious choice to say no when your impulses say yes, moderating pleasure, putting reason ahead of instinct. One emperor kept reminding himself that the mind has to stay in charge. Bodily urges aren't evil, but left unchecked they slowly wear down your character. Restraint lets reason win, keeping your actions deliberate instead of reactive, starting with small daily choices, measured speech, controlled appetite, resisting idle distraction, staying focused on what actually matters. A philosopher who was once a slave taught that mastering restraint starts with identifying what's actually inside your control: food, drink, speech, attention, versus what isn't: luck, reputation, outside events. Restraint means fully controlling the first group while calmly accepting the second. Patience runs through all of this. Many cravings demand to be satisfied right now. Delaying that satisfaction isn't a punishment, it's practice, building endurance, foresight, and clarity. Do it enough times, and what once felt hard becomes automatic, and restraint stops requiring any effort at all. Restraint also sharpens your thinking. A mind that isn't constantly hijacked by impulse sees situations clearly and can tell what's actually important from what's just noise. It builds emotional strength too. Anger, fear, desire, and jealousy still show up, but restraint lets you observe them instead of blindly acting on them. This is control, not suppression, and it actually sets you free rather than boxing you in. Real freedom was never about indulging every craving, it's the ability to act from reason no matter what pressure you're under, from outside or inside. Rule 5. Put every impulse through your own reasoning before acting on it. Living by reason sits right at the center of a disciplined life. The human mind has the ability to think things through, which separates us from creatures that just act on instinct, and that ability lets us act from character instead of appetite. Living by reason means putting rational thinking above impulse, principle above emotion, wisdom above whatever feels good right now. Discipline shows up naturally the moment your actions follow careful thought instead of reactive feeling. A philosopher who was once a slave taught that the highest good is character built through consistent use of reason. Outside things, money, reputation, health, carry no built-in moral weight. Only your judgment and choices are truly yours and genuinely deserve moral credit or blame. One emperor, reflecting often on how uncertain life truly is, believed that reason is exactly what gives you stability inside that uncertainty. Acting rationally doesn't remove hardship, it stops hardship from corrupting who you are on the inside. Your emotions are shaped by how you see things. Control how you see things through reason, and your mind stays steady through chaos. Living rationally is really just living free. Reason also guides ethical action, lining decisions up with fairness, moderation, courage, and wisdom. Acting without reason leads to indulgence and impulsiveness instead. Discipline shows up every single time reason wins over impulse, anger held back, desire moderated, fear faced with courage instead of avoided. In practice, this takes constant attention. Notice a thought or urge and ask whether it actually serves something bigger. Every pause before reacting is itself a small act of discipline. The advice one emperor kept giving himself wasn't about judging other people's behavior, it was about examining his own thinking, moment by moment. That inward focus is really where living by reason happens. Rule 4. Let the fact that you'll die someday make today matter more. Few realizations reorder your priorities faster than really facing the fact that life ends. One emperor, writing alone, often reminded himself that life is short, that each day doesn't last forever, and that time is the single most valuable thing he had. Facing that isn't depressing, it's motivating. Realizing how short life is sharpens your focus, clarifies your purpose, and makes the present moment the only place where good choices can actually happen. He warned himself directly against living as if he had thousands of years left. Death comes regardless. While you still have the ability to act, you have to choose to do good now. A disciplined mind accepts that the future stays uncertain, the past can't be changed, and only the present moment can actually be acted on. Discipline, seen this way, is simply putting in effort now instead of pushing it off to some imagined future. This awareness sharpens focus by fighting the mind's constant pull toward pointless distraction, mindless entertainment, endless scrolling, chasing status that fades. Measuring every choice against the fact that life is short brings back real intention. It also changes how you deal with fear. Most fear of loss, of failure, of criticism, comes from being too attached to comfort, reputation, or permanence. Realizing that death is just a natural part of life, not some injustice, releases that fear and replaces it with decisive action. The present matters precisely because it doesn't last. Putting things off becomes a way of stealing from yourself. Wasting time on distraction becomes time you'll never get back. Practicing full attention on purpose, really focusing on the task in front of you, big or small, becomes daily practice for actually living your life instead of coasting through it. This is also a good moment for the second reminder. If you haven't typed "will over weakness" yet, notice that the hesitation itself is exactly the kind of distraction this rule is warning you about. Rule 3. Build a mind that can take an emotional hit without falling apart. A mind that can't handle emotional pressure can't really claim to be in control. Circumstances, criticism, and passing events shouldn't be allowed to control your mood or your behavior. Instead, a steady inner core should observe, think, and respond using reason, and this steadiness isn't about hiding your feelings, it's about mastering how you respond to them. One emperor told himself constantly that outside events are neutral. What actually decides whether you feel peaceful or upset is the judgment you place on top of those events. A loss or an insult carries no built-in harm or benefit, your interpretation is what gives it weight. Feelings come up, but they don't automatically have to control your actions. Discipline is exercised the moment reason steps in instead of letting the feeling take over. Modern life, full of comparison and constant noise, makes emotions more volatile than ever before. Training here means watching your reactions without getting attached to them, and acting from principle instead of pure reaction. When anger flares up, figure out where it's coming from before you respond. When fear shows up, figure out what's actually within your control before you retreat. A philosopher who was once a slave taught that suffering actually comes from inside, from your judgment about events, not from the events themselves. This idea gets right to the root of emotional reaction. Every annoyance, delay, or setback becomes a chance to practice staying calm instead of a crisis. One useful exercise: picture hardship before it actually arrives. Rehearsing difficulty in your mind ahead of time means you're already used to it when real difficulty shows up, so you respond calmly instead of panicking. Choosing hardship on purpose reinforces this same training. Deliberate discomfort builds tolerance, so unexpected discomfort doesn't knock you off balance. Reframing matters a lot here too. An insult can be seen as an attack, or as a chance to practice patience. A failure can be seen as a disaster, or as a lesson. Choosing how you interpret something turns a potential emotional breakdown into a growth opportunity, and none of this requires you to shut off your feelings or your empathy. Compassion and fairness stay fully intact. Only your unchecked reactions get filtered through reason first. *** Rule 2. Direct your attention on purpose, because your mind wanders by default. Discipline isn't just an idea. It's the moment-to-moment choice of where to put your attention. Left alone, your mind drifts constantly toward distraction, cravings, and outside noise. Building discipline starts with training your focus, being fully present, thinking carefully about what actually matters, and acting from reason instead of impulse. Modern attention is under constant attack: notifications, information overload, cultural pressure to respond instantly, all pulling your willpower apart on purpose. One emperor kept telling himself to concentrate fully on the task right in front of him, ignoring the pull of trivial things no matter how loud they seemed. Focus, done right, isn't just convenience, it's a deliberate choice to line your mind up with reason and purpose. Building this daily starts with noticing. Where does your attention naturally go? Toward trivial things? Toward distractions? Just noticing the pattern is the first step to breaking it, and redirecting your energy toward whatever actually builds your character and gets your work done. Every day gives you countless small decision points: where to put effort, what to think about, how to respond, and each one is a chance to practice focus. Simplifying your surroundings matters here too, cutting out unnecessary input, reducing noise that competes with clear thinking. Your attention is limited. Spending it on purpose, instead of letting it scatter automatically, is really what separates a life lived with intention from one that just drifts. This is also a good moment for the last reminder. Pause for 3 full seconds and name, out loud or in your head, the one task that deserves your full attention right now. That small act of redirecting yourself is discipline in miniature, practiced in real time. *** Rule 1. Come back to the work today, without waiting to feel motivated. ***. Every rule already covered falls apart without this one holding it up. Insight without practice doesn't mean much. Good values without repetition never turn into real character. Discipline is never the result of occasional effort or a burst of motivation, it's the result of steady, unglamorous, daily repetition. Committing to a consistent routine, for your mind, body, and values, is what actually builds a character strong enough to handle hardship, control desire, and act rationally no matter what's happening. Consistency starts with a clear intention set each morning: act fairly, resist impulse, use reason, hold onto your values no matter the pressure. Without repetition, insights fade and lessons go to waste. Consistency is the bridge between knowing something and actually living it. Remove that bridge, and your mind stays untrained, an easy target for whatever comfort has to offer. This kind of consistency covers every part of life at once. Physical strength through regular exposure to effort and discomfort. Mental strength through reflection, learning, and quiet thought. Strong values through deliberately doing the right thing in every interaction, no matter how small. One emperor never expected instant transformation, Instead, he focused on the steady build-up of small, repeated actions, doing his duties carefully even in small matters, understanding that mastery is never instant. It's built gradually, through lining up your actions with your values, day after day, without skipping. Repetition also builds character directly. Giving in and avoiding things, repeated often enough, becomes weakness. Deliberate, reasoned action, repeated just as often, becomes strength instead. A structured daily rhythm reinforces this. Set your intention at the start of the day, apply it throughout every interaction, and end with an honest review before bed, checking how you did, naming what needs fixing, and recommitting right away. This kind of consistency also protects you from the collapse that comes from relying on mood or motivation. Both change constantly and unpredictably. Discipline tied to how you feel collapses the moment the feeling goes away. Discipline tied to a daily commitment survives no matter your mood, because repetition itself becomes the source of your strength, not motivation. Every one of the 11 rules already covered depends completely on this last one holding everything together. Reflection strengthens focus. Focus builds resilience. Resilience deepens self-restraint. Self-restraint sharpens control over craving. Control over craving clarifies your reasoning. Reasoning directs your attention to the present. Attention sustains consistency. And consistency finally loops back to Rule 12, staying balanced with pleasure and pain, because only a mind trained through daily repetition ever earns the right to stand unshaken by either one. That's the whole system laid out. Awareness shows you where your real control actually is. Consistency turns that awareness into habit. Choosing hardship on purpose tests that habit under manageable pressure. Controlling your cravings stops indulgence from wrecking the whole system. Emotional steadiness keeps everything standing when real disturbance hits. Reflection checks and corrects the whole system every night. Reason runs every decision inside it. Knowing life is short gives you the urgency that keeps procrastination from creeping back in. And staying balanced with pleasure and pain, the rule promised at the very beginning, is the final piece, the one that makes the whole thing truly unshakable. None of this requires rare talent, inherited money, or lucky circumstances. It requires one decision, repeated every day, to control yourself before anything else tries to control you. Start today. Reflect honestly. Focus on purpose. Endure willingly. Hold back when it counts. Think clearly. Stay present. That's the whole method, no shortcuts, no exceptions, and no waiting to feel ready first, because that feeling never actually comes. Discipline is what creates readiness, not the other way around. Before wrapping up, one last thing, say out loud, right now, which of these 12 rules shows the biggest gap between what you know and what you actually do? Naming it is the first step. Everything after that is just repetition.